Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you are doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. Okay, today on the Dungeon Dive, we are going to be doing a flip through of three new to me supplements for Mork Borg, and that is Heretic, Book of Misery Volume 1, and The Valley of Forbidden Churches. And then after we look through all of these, we are going to talk about my top 5 metal albums of the year so far. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at Heretic. And Heretic comes with this poster dungeon here, which is kind of a pictorial dungeon. It's kind of cool. Has some really good artwork, a few little charts you can roll on, some information there, a little map. But I kind of like the way that looks, and I think it looks like a pretty cool background for this video. A nice explosion of Morkborg colors. I feel bad for anybody printing this material out at home in color because your yellow and magenta are going to be absolutely destroyed. But anyways, here is Heretic. This one just arrived. In the mail, and this is similar to the Ferratory. It's a really nice collection of a lot of stuff that has been available online, some stuff for free, and some supplements that are paid for, and all kind of collected into one nice volume. One thing I wish they would do on like Heretic and also on Ferratory is make their covers a little more robust. Like this Book of Misery, it's a little more like a cardstock cover, and same for this Valley of Forbidden Churches. Both of these are from Exalted Funeral, and yeah, I just wish the official stuff just had a little more robust cover. But they do feel nice. But I could see these covers getting ruined pretty quickly. But here we have our table of contents. Here we have Seeds of Occult, Unheroic Feats, Sacrilegious Songbird, Shedding Vicar. Both of those are classes. Then we have Graves Left Wanting, which is a huge kind of a campaign setting adventure. Bloat, Black Powder Weapons, You Are Cursed, The Merchant, BWFTRAF, that is the Black Powder Weapons for the rich and foolhardy. The Sepulchre of the Swamp Witch, the Bone Boyer, the Borg Baitor, the Rotten Nurse, and Nurse the Rot. And so that's all the stuff that is going to come in this particular little supplement. And in the inside cover here, we have the Seeds of Occult. And this I know I will use often because it is always fun to fight cults in games. I don't know what it is about cults in RPGs and board games, but yeah, I never get tired of cults. And so you can, let's see, I have 2D12. Its name is 2, the Children of Rusty Razors. Nice. The cult is thriving, or would be if only. Key member, perhaps the leader. Let's see here. The key member is 3D10. Let's see, who is the leader here? 7. It's a cannibal, thought worshiper, and broken and wasting. So maybe he's wasting away, and that's why the cult is not thriving. But if the leader is somehow gets better, that they will be doing well. Where are their headquarters at? 7. A graven tusk murder maze mausoleum. In order to reach the shimmering fields, what one must do in the cult in order to reach the cult's afterlife. 13. Let's see. Declare all omens to the Nekarubal Oracle. Hate those who refuse. They truly hate. Who do the members of this cult hate? Who are their arch enemies? And that is number 9. Anyone of noble or worse yet, royal lineage, aka blasphemous blue bloods. So very cool. It's always fun to make up random cults. Here we have the Unheroic Feats. So we have taken a look at that, but this is like the before in my black and white printed version. But this is the nice official version here. I like to use Unheroic feats when I get better. When I level up in Mork Borg, I like to roll for a random one of these unheroic feats. So you can have a D66 here. I just noticed that these dice are pretty much official Mork Borg color dice. Nice. All right, so let's do pink will be 10s here. 11. Oh, look at that. The assassin's death blow. A firm grip, a sharp knife. That's all it takes for someone to disappear into the alleys of Galkenbeck. You've become adept at it over the years. Test strength with a DR of 12 to grapple an unaware foe and automatically crit with a one-handed bladed weapon. All right, let's see another one here. Pink will be 10s. 14. Wow, that I'm gonna try to get something other than a 1 there. Okay, what is wrong with these dice? Are these dice cursed? There we go. 35. Let's do that. I'm happy with 35. That was a good age. The Herbalist Healer. You spent what seems like an eternity under the haze-filled apprenticeship of a master herbalist. You left with a new outlook on life and a few extra skills. Once per day, you may scrounge to find the necessary herbs and flora to create an infection-curing elixir that also heals D4 HP. Test presence at DR12 to attempt this treatment. Failing instead creates a toxin dealing D4 damage. Nice. I was going to say, that seems way too good for Mork Borg. And then it's like, oh yeah, there we go. But this has a D66 table of just different kinds of feats, different kinds of powers, things that you can get when you level up. Or you can, when you creating a new character, you can also use one of those. And here we have 2 classes. The Sacrilegious Songbird. This is a bard class. And I always like that. This is really cool. Always the bringer of unwelcome sounds. Your vocation as a bard left you destitute and disreputable until the rueful day when a being of impious character made you the deal of a lifetime. Your soul may be screaming, but your throat sings sweetly, and your purse ever sweeter, a small price to pay. So you're some kind. I can only imagine what a bard sounds like in the world of Mork Borg. Then we have the Shedding Vicar here, and this is another class. Armor is weak, clothing a sin, and skin an aberrant vanity. King Sigfrim's hubris needs to be stripped from the lands, from our bodies, as skin is shed and scabs peeled. The day when the wounds don't heal is the beginning, and we must seek absolution. The first peel is always the worst, but remember, at the end of pain lies the promise of virtue, of true vindication. So some guy who is constantly pulling off his skin, the Shedding Vicar. And here we have a very large, probably the largest kind of a campaign setting or adventure setting that I have seen in Mork Borg, and that is Graves Left Wanting. This is an immense cemetery, older and greater than memory. Graventosk sits in the Sarkish like a festering scab. To the east, the Shadow King's manse looms always impossibly equidistant. Although abandoned since the palace's ruination, bodies somehow keep finding their way inside, all the while living and unliving attempt to claw their way out. A bit of metanoia. The adventure is intended as a starting point for your campaign, a one-shot or a post-total party kill adventure. So you have a bunch of characters that get killed. They can wake up in this cemetery. Due to its massive size and unsettling nature, even PCs familiar with other parts of the cemetery are oblivious to their adventures, to this adventure's locales. Have the players awaken in the plague pit, in coffins under suffocating earth, or wherever you deem appropriate. There isn't a defined ending or clear escape path. Once the Undertaker's hut is explored, the players should plan a potential getaway or be hopelessly lost, and a more obvious exit or method of escape if you feel that would end their misery. It won't. And here we have a map of the graveyard, a great big map of the graveyard. And then the rest of the supplement here is all about the things that you're going to find in this graveyard. The graveyard. Walking purposefully is hard in the fog. Winding paths seem bent on leading fools astray. Traveling between places takes 15 minutes. Roll for a random encounter each time. So we have walking the trail, what you know about Graven Tosk, random encounters, sensory strangeness. We have some creatures here, the Widow Wraith, the hungry zombie, the rotted skeleton, the unbred mutt, and the half-billed raven. And then we have all of our various places. And running pre-made modules can sometimes be a little difficult solo. That's not, well, I don't mean difficult in the sense that they're hard to run, but difficult in the sense that it's hard to keep the sense of surprise. And when running modules as a solo RP player, solo role player, I think of them more as I'm okay with reading them and spoiling the surprise, but what is fun for me is figuring out how I got there or connecting the dots between locations or just coming up with small little snippets of story about each of the encounters at each location. We have the Plague Hit, we have Earhart's Tomb, the Colander Room, Mouse Vomitorium, the Catacomb Corridor, the Origin Fountain. So each one of these could be a location for a cool little solo adventure. The Coach Herder's Lair, the Shadow King's Sewer, the Strangly Tree, the Undertaker's Hut, a Twist of Fate. You know, maybe you need to. Maybe the Undertaker's Hut is is like your main destination for the first part of that adventure of your solo game, and then a Twist of Fate. Okay, and then we have Bloat, a gluttonous dungeon. So a little dungeon crawl. You could probably incorporate that into the aforementioned adventure. And this is a really cool. You are cursed. So this is a whole little supplement about what to do with curses. And you could easily make this an adventure for your solo game because you could roll up a curse and then find out what you need to do to get rid of it. So you are cursed. What now? 15. Wherever you go, black cats follow in great numbers. In 2d6 plus 4 days, a black goat comes to you in your sleep and carries you away to the void eternal. Okay. Then say one can help you. They say one can help you. Who? Okay, so let's see who might be able to help us with our curse here. 2. Hukon II, penniless prince, once a curse crafter himself, now a wreck, lost in malaise. Okay, so we would have to find him to help us with this curse against the black goats and the black cats. What is the price for this knowledge? 10. You trade it for another curse. Okay, so we find Hukon the Third or the second, and then we have to trade one curse for the other. So how do I get rid of this? And that is a D12 roll here. A 1. Coat a mirror in snake's saliva. Pour ashen salt in a metal bowl. Watch yourself cry into it. Okay, so I mean, that right there is a cool little adventure that you could go on as a solo role player. And then we have the merchant here, and I have looked at the merchant before. And a viewer of the Dungeon Dive told me a thing that they use the merchant for, and I'm just stealing that flat out. Told them I was going to start using that, and when he levels up, when they get better, you know, they can also roll on the feet, and then also you get a visit from the merchant. It's kind of like, hey, it's your birthday, and this weird merchant guy, he's kind of like a Santa Claus, comes by whenever you level up, and you have an opportunity to buy things from the merchant, the traveling merchant, depending on where you are in the world. I love that. That adds another really cool thing to leveling up. And then we have some rules for black powder weapons if you want to use those. The Sepulchre of the Swamp Witch is a little adventure there. And there we have a little dungeon crawl and our rooms there. So again, you could run through that solo, just doing a little point crawl if you wanted through the maze. And then we have our a few big creatures here. The Bone Boyer. Yeah, I could read that. A nice little creature there. The Bog Biter. And then the Rotten Nurse. And the Rotten Nurse is nursing the rot there. And we have this, this is her home. This is where she dwells. So yeah, pretty cool little supplement. Not a ton of stuff, like nothing really specifically made for the solo role player, but enough in there that I think you could get some good use out of it. And next up is the from the Exalted Funeral folks, and that is the Book of Misery, Volume 1. This is basically a collection of classes and creatures. So classes, we have the Thinker, the Nihilistic Conqueror, the Hag of a Gone Age, Man's Best Friend, Sewer Baby, and the Ashen Warrior. Then we have a critical fail table, more weapons. We have some monsters, the Cosmic Phase Spider, the the Pisky, the Undead Lightning Coil Warrior of Doom, the Northern Troll, the Psychedelic Prism Hunter, the Orc, the Man Spider, the Huzat, the Mother of Crawlers, the Red Spawn of Rot, the River Giant, the Haunted Nightmares, and then a few little adventures here. This one has a much different look to it than most of the Morkborg stuff I've seen. I'm not a huge fan of the art in this book, but some of the material I think is well worth having. So here we have our Thinking Thinker. Gosh darn, well, aren't you a smart one? Through many alchemical experiments, you have mastered not only your wit and intellect, but also, well, actually, that's it. But still, you're smart. All right, then we have here the Nihilistic Conqueror. This is a nice page layout. I like that. The Hag of a Bygone. That should be Bygone Age, right? Not Hygone. Gygone? Bygone? Yeah, I think that should be a Bygone Age. I don't know. Unless Hygone is Gygone. Is that how you say Bygone in Morkborg? Who knows? All right, and then we have a man's best friend. You can have a little pet. So hey, if you wanted to have a pet in Morkborg, imagine that. The Sewer Baby, raised in the festering sewers of a decaying city, the putrid toxic excrement has solidified your physical age. You have the physical appearance of a child and the cunning. That reminds me of a old, was it Sean Houston horror book called The Spawn, I think it's called. He was the author of Slugs, which Slugs is amazing. Really good paperback from horror style of novel. But he had a novel about a doctor. It was like a doctor using aborted fetuses as an army of killer kids. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Let's see, the Ashen Warrior. A hero is not something you see too often, especially one with the guile to fiercely tackle any foe. Born of ashen dirt, you are akin to the heroic warriors of the past, swinging a large great sword, whilst some awesome battle music rages on like an unconquerable storm in the background. And then crit, if you crit fail, roll here. So I always like crit fail charts. What would happen? 5. You hit yourself in the foot, removing 1d4 toes. Nice. If you crit while you are defending, a 7. A piece of debris pierces under your fingernail and goes deep. Ugh, gross. Okay, so here's some new weapons that you can roll on. Again, weapons in Morkborg aren't really all that. They're basically just a damage and a picture. The Cosmic Phase Spider. So here we have some new enemies. The Cosmic Phase Spider. The Pisky. Interesting looking fella there. The Northern Troll. The Psychedelic Prism Hunter. A Bog Standard Orc. And the Man Spider. These two look like they were drawn by somebody's 6-year-old son. The Huzat, 45 hit points. Man, this guy is like some kind of like god or something there. The Mother of Crawlers, the Red Spawn of Rot, the River Giant. That is a great, great piece of art there. I love that. The line work is fantastic. Haunted Nightmares. And the Grand Tea Hut. Somewhere in the woods is a quaint little wooden hut with a stone chimney puffing smoke. Cool. So just a little hut that you can explore with some different types of tea. You want to have some tea time in Morkborg. There you go. All right, that Claymore. What is this called? Hilias? What is that guy? Mother of Crawlers. Who's Heligas, warrior woman and protector of Gran. Okay. There we go. And then we have the Howling Caverns. So this is a little dungeon crawl there. And then we have a dungeon most pointless with D4 random encounters and your room layout there. And then the Putrid House, another little dungeon crawl. And yeah, all right. So that was Book of Misery, Volume 1. I need to see if Volume 2 is out. And then we have the Valley of Forbidden Churches. This came out and it came with a copy, so I also made a black and white copy. I kind of wish maybe some more Mork Borg stuff was in black and white. I do like getting the PDF with that from Exalted Funeral because then you can also print out the maps in the book much larger and make them more useful. So I've printed out the Valley of Forbidden Churches there. We have our key, so I can do a solo hex crawl on that map. We have a city, the Silver City, which I could use the Solitary Defilement city crawl rules to do a nice little city crawl through the Silver City. And then we have a dungeon here, the Demon Worm Tunnels. And those are all places and things and little adventure areas that are covered in the Valley of Forbidden Churches. We have the Valley of Forbidden Churches, the Demon Worm Tunnels, and the Silver City. It says, before the Crusaders of the Cretan Order turned their sights to the valley called Standing Bale, religions grew there like wildflowers. Now trespassing is forbidden. It is quiet. It is a quiet sepulchre. Empty churches staring silently at each other across the abandoned wastes. So we just have this whole kind of like just desolate valley that's filled with these old abandoned churches and cultists. So man, you could probably roll up a cult for each one or something from Heretic and just have a whole bunch of different adventures in this forgotten valley of abandoned churches. Pretty cool. I like that. So here we have all the different encounters that you can have. So you have your encounters table while you are in the Valley of Forbidden Churches, and then you have your different locations. Saints Winding Path, the Chapel of Sovereign Howls, the Crusader Outpost. Looks like there's like a little inn that has a menu of things you can order. The Monastery of Forbidden Benediction, the First Church of the Hidden Path, Shrine of the Blessed Regalia, First Church of the Final Offering, Church of the Abbot's Cursed Sword, the Abbey of Silent Grace, the Saint's Pyre, the Great Horn Tower. And then we can go into the Demon Worm Tunnels. The Demon Worm has 2 tunnels underground, sometimes boring up into the church, searching for holy relics to consume. Okay, that is awesome. Very, very cool there. And you have some key locations in the Demon Worm's tunnels. So maybe the demon worm is like going up and gobbling up these sacred cursed relics of the church and getting stronger and stronger. And so you definitely want to take care of that demon worm there. The tunnel features, so some different features here. This is generate 2 features per location. Roll a D66. Oh, okay, let's see that. 52. Let's see what we would find here from the demon worm features at number 52. D3 hungry sulfur gremlins. You can smell them coming. Okay, that's really cool. This is a really nice little chart here for any kind of a cavern crawl that you might be going through. And then we have the Silver City, which is a nice city that we can crawl through, and all kinds of different encounters and different things to find there. So yeah, so I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the Forbidden Church, the Valley of Forbidden Churches, and the Book of Misery and Heretic. Okay, so now let's get into my top 5 metal albums of the year so far. 2022 is just about halfway over, a little more than halfway over. And I have a group of friends who together we keep like our own top 40 albums of the year. And then we get together at the end of every year and we talk about our top 20. And in my top albums of the year so far, I have about 5 awesome metal albums. Actually, more than that, but these are the top 5. And they cover kind of an array of styles. And so let's just get to it. So coming in at number 5 is Author and Punisher, and the album is Crueler. And this is kind of an example of industrial doom sludge metal. If you've ever heard a Godflesh, think of Godflesh, or maybe Nine Inch Nails if they were more metal and slower and more sludgy. Author and Punisher is a single dude named Tristan Schoen, and he builds his own machines that look like a mix between like Tetsuo the Iron Man and a Cenobite with a power glove. He has his arm in a machine where he punches to trigger his bass drum samples. He sings through this contraption that looks like this headgear from hell. He looks like he's in pain and suffering while he is performing. Just overall, I think in the past, I think his music has been better to watch because it's so interesting watching him making the sounds. But this album is really accessible with some absolutely fantastic songs. Highly recommended. Okay, so number 4 is Death White and their newest album, Gray Everlasting. And this is goth metal, and they are from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They are one of those mystery bands. They always perform shrouded in hoods, and so no one really knows who they are. They feature more clean singing. It doesn't have like the guttural growls often found in more like black metal, but they have these deep, gothy vocals, very melodic, mixing in flourishes of like blast beat black metal, but closer to goth and not quite as aggressive. I don't think this album is as good as 2020's Grave Images, which is a masterpiece. And a lot of that has to do with the production. It really does lack punch. I don't know, it's really weird, but even though it doesn't quite get that punch that I'm looking for, the songs are still great, as are the gothic vibes that I totally dig. And number 3 is Kardashev and their album Liminal Right. They are atmospheric death gaze or black gaze or perhaps progressive metal from Tempe, Arizona. Death gaze or black gaze is kind of like a play on the shoegaze scene, the British scene from the late or the early 90s. Bands who played like My Bloody Valentine, who just played behind a wall of sound of like distorted, weirdly like affected guitar work, sounded like their guitars were drunk while staring at their feet. Well, some of that has crept into metal over the last decade or so. And the real star of this album is their vocalist, Mark Garrett, who switches between really soft, clean, and pretty vocal styles into full-on guttural, demonic belches, often from like one phrase to the next. The focus is on the atmospherics and that death gaze wall of sound, drifting from post-rock riffs into just aggressive blast beats. The album is very adventurous, mixing in spoken word and some kind of connective narrative. And number 2, man, my number 2 and number 1 are so close together. And the only reason why number 2, I think, isn't my number 1 is just because it's far more aggressive. And so I'm not in the mood to listen to it as much as my number 1. But that is from a band called Tomarum. And the album is called Ash in Realms of Stone Icons. This group is an atmospheric black metal, progressive black metal from Atlanta, Georgia. And while only officially a 2-piece, they are joined on the album by a full complement of instruments, including some absolutely killer keyboards. This is your typical kind of a black metal with the blast beats, but with guitar solos that sound more like they're ripped from some stoner rock band. And the bassist uses a fretless bass, which is kind of often noodling around like some crazed jazz bassist. Many of the tracks are well over 10 minutes long, of course, with multiple parts phasing in and out. The vocal fry style vocals are often punctuated with some really haunting, clean singing and some absolutely killer riffs and just shredding guitar solos. This band is amazing. I believe this is their first full-length album, and I am really excited to see where these guys go. And number one, coming in at number one is Epigon from a band called Wild Run. Wild Run's the band. Epigon is the album. This is a progressive metal, folk metal, and they are from Boston, Massachusetts. This is bordering on symphonic metal, but it never makes that final jump into those like cheesy depths. The band mixes elements of folk instrumentation with atmospheric black metal and straight up prog rock with really effortless results. This came out the first week of 2022. I think it came out like January 4th, I believe, to absolutely stellar reviews. And I doubt I'll hear a better album this year. Every second of the album is masterful. It's lusciously produced, mixed, and mastered. It's simply a joy to behold. I love every moment of this album. It has great lyrics filled with cryptic passages, perfect instrumentation, and complex arrangements. It's pure ear candy, this album. Oh, I love it. It's prog rock at its absolute finest. Even if you don't like kind of like modern extreme metal, if you like bands like Porcupine Tree, or maybe if you like bands back in the day like Pink Floyd or Uriah Heep or something, I think you could jump in with Epigon and you will absolutely love the album. It's super great. So, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed taking a look at the Mork Borg supplements and also my top 5 metal albums of the year so far. We'll talk to you later, guys. Bye bye.